Hey guys, I hope you enjoy this week's sermon. If you're interested in getting connected here more at the sanctuary, you can visit us at our website at tscwest.org, or you can check us out on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all of the things. I hope you enjoy this message.
This morning, Tyler is going to be teaching out of John 15, 1 through 12. And it says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me as I remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up and thrown into the fire and burned. If you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish and it will be done for you. This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Now remain in my love. If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love. And just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love, I have told you this so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Amen.
All right. Welcome, everyone. My name is Tyler. I'm one of the pastors here at the Sanctuary Church. Rachel was going to clean up all these answered prayers, and I said, leave them. I said, I want to pray with these here. What a church this is. For whatever it's worth, these aren't like old either. We empty that out sometimes, and like this gets filled up a lot. Not all the churches have buckets filled with answered prayers, but this one does. Also, I just want to say this really quick. Of course we know, because she's been here forever, that Rachel is so special. But somebody else who's really special is Bethany. And I just want to make loud and clear, like in a very similar way, like this place doesn't exist if it's not for Cindy. It's exactly the same with Bethany. And just as we navigate this church, as you navigate this place, like she deserves like big honor and mega respect. Just like the degree to which she does things that none of you and none of us will see is like significant. And and so like, man, you got $5, like give it to her. Buy her a coffee, buy her flowers. Tell her thank you, even if you don't know, like the fact that the lights are on, that this place is clean, that that any of us are here, a lot of it has to do with her. So she deserves big, big honor and all that, So anyways, Bethany is awesome. So as we start today, what I'd like you to do is take a few deep breaths. And close your eyes if you'd like, you don't have to. What I want you to do is imagine what your life would be like if these qualities were present in your life. Think about going to work. Think about how you parent. Think about how you send emails and engage on social media. What would life feel like if these qualities were present? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. I don't know about you, but this is the kind of life I would like to live. Doesn't that sound nice? If these qualities were present in how we lived and treated one another. These, as the scripture teaches us, are fruits of the Spirit. And these are qualities that one exhibits in their life when one is in union with God. In John chapter 15, verse 8, it says, "This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples." How do we know if we're being discipled by Christ? I think we all want to be discipled by Christ. We want to walk in the way of Jesus. It's when these qualities, the fruits of the Spirit, show up in our life. Now, the truth is, I know for all of us, there are times when these fruits have been made manifest and other times not so much. And if you're like me, you know there's some of the qualities, some of the fruits that are very easy to come by and come by very naturally, and there's others that are very hard to embody. But our longing and our aim should be to bear the fruit of the Spirit in all areas of our life. Wouldn't that be nice? And so here within this teaching, we're in John 15, we hear from Jesus himself. He teaches us, invites us, and reminds us how to bear much fruit. I'm going to quickly read back over John chapter 15, verses 4 through 10. "Remain in me as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine and you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up and thrown into the fire and burn. If you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish and it will be done for you. This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourself to be my disciples. As the Father is of me, so have I loved you. Now remain in my love. If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as my Father's commands, just as I've kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. Is there a word that sticks out to you at all? Remain and love. Yes. Remain. This word remain is vital to our exploration this morning. The Greek word for remain is minio, which can be translated as to abide, to dwell within, to live inside of, to be grafted together with, to be made one with. Another translation of this says, abide in me, make your home in me, stay connected to me, be one with me, because apart from me, you can do nothing. The Passion Translation says it like this, and it's paraphrased: you must remain in life union with me, for I remain in life union with you. You see, the word remain here, it invites us to a deeply intricate life union with God. And this, my friends, is where the fruit of the Spirit comes from. It comes from this spirit union, this oneness, this being deeply connected to God. This can't even be described, my friends, as friendship. It's much more intimate than that. It's a oneness. Lana, actually, the prophet Lana here in our midst, she had a word this morning during prayer that today would be a day where we plug back into the power supply. And that the power flows through the cord when we plug it into the power supply. And the truth is, we're the same way. Like, her word was so spot on. When we plug into the plug, the power flows through us. There's electricity, there's life. But it doesn't happen when we're not plugged in. This is what it means to abide. It means to stay plugged in. You know, a plug or an extension cord doesn't work very well when you just plug it in and plug it out and just leave it out, or plug it in. No, you want to plug it in and you keep it in. That's how it works, isn't it? You plug it in and it flows. The electricity flows. This is what it looks like to abide. Thank you, Lana, for listening so clearly for that word. In the Gospel of John alone, and we don't even have the time to go through there's so many scriptures that talk about this. Jesus repeatedly emphasizes the deep, transformative union with God that is available to his followers. And again, I don't think this is just a metaphor. I think this is the very source of our life and our ability to bear fruit as we navigate the world. John 6 says, whoever feeds on my flesh and drinks of my blood abides in me and I in them. So, and when I say me, obviously we're talking about Christ here. Abides in Christ and Christ in them. In John 14:17, when talking about the Spirit, it says, you know him for he dwells with you and is in you. John 14:10, do you believe that I am in the Father and the Father is in me? In 14:20, in that day you will know that I am in my Father and you are in me and I am in you. Talk about a communal union here. Jesus says, I'm in my Father, you are in me, and I am in you. What? Oneness and union. John 17:20-23. I do not ask for these things only, but also for those who will believe in me through their word, that they may all be one, just as you, Father, are in me, and I am in you, that they also may be in us. What? Just as you, Father, are in me and I am in you, that they may also be in us. We are in God, God is in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me, the glory that you have given me, that I have given them, that they may be one as we are one, I in them and you in me. In 1 John chapter 4:13, I'll do 2 verses that aren't in John, and then we'll move along. By this we know that we abide in him and he in us, because he has given us his Spirit. In Ephesians 2:22, in him you are being built together into a dwelling place for God by the Spirit. So in God we are being built to be a dwelling place. Really what we're saying here is to remain or to abide is to be in union with God at all times. It's this idea that God is not somewhere far off, that God isn't some far off entity that we must work our way towards, that we have to work to obtain, but rather that no matter where we are, no matter what is going on, that there is a connection that is possible between us and God, God and us. If we're at the grocery store, or if we're in traffic, if we're in church, or we're at our kids' soccer game with a bad referee, if you're across the table from a relative who's politically different than you, or as you watch the news and there's some pundit that's trying to get you to be really scared and anxious, no matter where you're sitting, no matter what's going on, you can be in union with God. You can abide in God. And regardless of the circumstances, the fruits of the Spirit can overflow out of your life. What we're saying here is that when we truly abide in God, our fruit doesn't have to be to the whim of the circumstances all around us. That our fruit can come from a different place. But so often our fruit is birthed out of our circumstance. I'm in traffic, so I'm anxious and I'm angry and I'm mad. Versus say, no matter what, the fruit is coming from within. Do we want the fruits of the Spirit? Do we want to be disciples of Jesus? We dwell, we abide, we remain in God and God in us like a vine in its branches. So the question becomes, what does it mean and what does it look like in a practical way to remain and to abide in this way? First, I'd like to tell you what abiding is not. Abiding is not busy, and abiding is not rushed. Abiding is not running around from place to place trying to earn approval and trying to get love. Often I think when we hear words like bearing fruit or that we must abide in God, our default setting is to go towards achievement and effort and work. I need to try harder. I need to do more. I need to be more. But Jesus is not calling us to strive towards this. He's calling us and inviting us to abide. Jesus makes this very clear in Matthew 11, 28 through 30. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lonely in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. What's important here is that when a rabbi refers to their yoke, what they're talking about is their teaching. So when a rabbi would have, different rabbis would have different yokes. And so when a rabbi says, and when Jesus, who was a rabbi, says, when my yoke is easy, what he's saying is my teaching is pretty easy to follow. It's not as complicated as you made it out to be. There will be some trials, there will be some struggles, but my yoke is easy, the burden is light. Which is so crazy because then Derek came up and he read Psalm 91. And what does that say? It says, who dwells in the shelter of the Most High. You could also read that as abides. Who sits, who's plugged into the shelter of the Most High will rest in his shadow. Abiding is not frantic. It's not running around. Abiding is slow and steady, baby. It's the opposite of striving. To abide in God is a direct call to cease from our exhausting efforts to prove ourselves and instead to rest in the grace and love of God. My friends, the pressure is off. The pressure is off. Have you ever spent time looking at a fruit tree, by the way? You know what fruit trees don't do? They don't make an effort and rush. They don't run from one place to another year after year. They're not running around frantically. They don't try to bear fruit in seasons when it's not their time to bear fruit. They're not bearing fruit in the winter. They take their time. They're slow and steady. You know what they also don't do? They don't look at the pine trees and say, I wish I was a pine tree. I'm going to go change myself. Fruit trees, they just sit where they are and they be who they are. They simply abide. They put their roots deep down and they draw from the source of life beneath their roots until they are full of nutrients, and then they overflow. And then they overflow. Does your life look like a fruit tree? This is what it looks like to abide. When winter comes, metaphorically, do you try and escape it and run away? Or do you abide and ride it out, connected to the divine source? Do you look at other trees and try to change yourself? Or are you content with the way God made you, beautifully and wonderfully? Now, this still leads to, I think, another practical question. What do we actually do? Like, Tyler, that's a cool metaphor, but I'm not a tree. I still have to go to work. I still have kids. All of the details, of course, right? If abiding looks like living slowly and simply, like an apple tree or like Jesus, if it looks like letting go of control and letting God, what do we do with our day-to-day life? And I want to just make note really quick. I do think, like, what I'm not telling you to do is just stay in one place for the next 150 years. But for what it's worth, I think it's worth just saying here that there's something to say for stability. For folks who stay in one place for a long time, who learn the culture from where they are and they go through the ups and downs, those folks tend to bear more fruit. Folks who move churches when things get hard, or they run away from every relationship when they get uncomfortable. What these types of people don't get is the privilege to see the fruit that happens when they experience many, many seasons. You might see a little fruit here or there, but when you engage, like my wife have been through some tough stuff. Like we've almost not made it a few times. And now we're pushing 11 or 12 years or something like that. I should probably get that to make sure we make it to the other one, however many it is. But the fruit that is in our marriage because we've stuck it out. Sure, the first 2 years were fine. They were great. But there's something that we only experience because we're as far as we've made it, because we've stuck it out. Sometimes this means you have to endure hard seasons. It doesn't mean we're lazy. It means we work, we cultivate the soil, we take the nutrients up from the ground. We have to endure winter and summer and spring. But man, there's something about stability. But we're still human beings. We still sometimes move towns. Sometimes we do have to move churches. Sometimes we change relationships. I get it. Life is real and it happens. How do we practically abide in our day-to-day life? This is what we're going to explore for our last little bit of time here. And don't worry, Jesus talks a lot about this. Now, what's interesting here is that what Jesus teaches in this chapter, it almost sounds like it's in conflict with abiding a little bit, but I promise you that it's not. Verses 9 and 10, as the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Now remain in my love. If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his. So what is Jesus saying? In tandem with this idea of abiding, all throughout John 15, he says, keep my commands, obey my commands, listen to and obey my commands. Now out of this gate, again, this probably sounds like we must do more, that we must obey all these rules. And so now I guess everything that we just established about resting and abiding, it must be null and void because now we've got all these commands and things to obey. That's not what's happening here. I think for many Christians, when we hear commands, we think of things that we must do lest we be punished and sent to hell forever. Do this or else. But it's not like that. In fact, Jesus goes overboard in this passage, telling us that these commands are not like that. And we'll go over that in a minute. But the commands that Jesus is talking about here, they are not, and I want to make this clear, they are not rules that he's lording over us, but rather they're support beams that help hold us up and help us remain in the vine. These are, there are things, and we've all experienced this, right? There's things that we do in our life that if we do them, they're called sin. If we do them, they hinder our ability to remain in the vine. But there are also habits and lifestyle choices that if we so choose to engage in them, they will allow us to abide in the vine and bear much fruit. Another word for command here, we're gonna get a little nerdy for a second, so buckle up. Another word for command here is rule. Everybody say rule. But again, it's not what you think. The word rule comes from the Latin word regulia. Say regulia. Regulia, you know what that means? A straight piece of wood. It means a straight piece of wood. This is where we get the word ruler, okay? This is where we get the word ruler. Now let's pretend for a second you're a grape farmer, okay? You're trying to make these vines work. Trying to make these vines produce grapes. One of your primary jobs as a grape farmer is to support the vine and the branches so that they can stay in union together and bear fruit. Does this sound familiar? So what you do is you take a bunch of regulias or rulers and you put them around the vine in order to support the connection of the vine and the branches so that they can remain together and bear fruit. This is what you call a trellis. So if you look at a vineyard, what you see are these structures that are built, which allow the vine and the branches to remain in union with one another. So what are rules? It's the trellis. It's the support system. Listen, if you use these rules, if you use these straight pieces of wood, it will help you remain in the vine. So in this passage, when Jesus says, keep my commands and you will remain in my love, what he's not saying is, if you don't obey my rules, I don't love you anymore. What he's saying is there's a way of life that if you choose to live it, it will support you in such a way that you will be able to abide in me and I will abide in you, and together we will bear much fruit. In verse 14, a great translation of this that really uses the verb for obey says, if you keep on obeying as if it is a life habit. Which is saying it's not like a one-time thing. It's something that you're doing consistently. It's how you live. If you live this way, you will be abiding over the long haul. So the question becomes, what are the things in your life that support your ability to abide in the vine and remain in the vine? What are the things that support your awareness of your constant union with God? Not out of a fear of being punished, but out of a longing to see the fruit of the Spirit overflow in your life. This is what spiritual teachers for hundreds and hundreds of years have called a rule of life. What are the rulers or the support beams that help you abide and bear fruit? Now, when somebody thinks of a rule of life, the temptation is to first and foremost think about more things to do. What more is there to be done? How much more scripture do I have to read? How many more church services do I have to go to? But again, doing more is the opposite of abiding. One of the things that Trellis does is they use it to extend the vine, which is to say what they do is they want to spread the grapes out so the grapes have space to fully mature. So if the little bushels of grapes are bunched up to another bushels of grapes, those grapes won't grow to full maturity. They need space. They need space. So one of the things the rule or the trellis does is it gives space between the bushels of grapes. Which is to say, a good trellis, a good rule of life, to obey the commands of Christ creates space in our life. Do you have space in your life? Or is your life all bunched up, bunched together? So busy, rushing from one thing to another, or is there space to breathe? Is there space to grow? Another thing that a trellis does is it keeps the vines off the floor, which keeps them away from disease, keeps them away from the animals. So again, do you have things that are keeping you in safe places? You know, for some of us, we show up at recovery meetings every week, or sometimes every day, sometimes multiple times a day. What does this do? It keeps us off the floor. It keeps us out of the poisonous places. It puts us into environments where we can bear much fruit. Where are my eyes spending most of their time? Am I just scrolling for hours and hours, getting poison off the dirty ground, or am I building a trellis that allows my mind and my eyes and my soul to stay safe? Am I just watching the news, forming every opinion I have, and then judging everybody else based on what I saw on Facebook? Getting poison in me all day? Or am I creating a rule of life that allows me to dwell in the Spirit and say, God, how do you think I should treat those refugees? God, how do you think I should treat that person on the margins? God, how do you think, right? A rule of life keeps us off the ground, out of the dirt. So if we're going to obey the commands and remain in his love, if we're going to have this rule or this support system, we can ask two simple questions. How am I creating space, and how am I staying healthy? Do I go to bed earlier so I'm well rested and not anxious all day long? Do I take less meetings every day in order to maintain my mental and spiritual health? Yes. Right? That's a good question to ask. One of the commands in Scripture is to Sabbath once a week. I mean, for what it's worth, Sabbath comes before like don't murder, don't commit adultery, for whatever that's worth. Like, it's a pretty serious one. Like I said, Lord knows our screen time does not allow us to abide. Just imagine if you just did this one thing in your rule of life. What if you replaced 50% of your screen time with going on walks outside without your phone? Now imagine, I'm not kidding here, imagine how your prayer life and union with God would multiply. Just imagine for a second if you turned off your phone and went on a friggin' walk. I think everything would change. I think everything would change. Instead of paying maybe for 5 different streaming services and going out to work every day, maybe you pool that money and go to therapy. To make space for you to get healthy. I'm not just riffing, I'm serious. These are things we do to get healthy. You're spending your money. Where are you spending your money? Where you spend your money forms your life. If you spend your money at Taco Bell, that's going to form your life real quick. And your body. Eat a salad and go to therapy. Can we make that a shirt? Thank you, Paul. A rule of life, my friends, is not about earning God's love or forgiveness or presence. You can never be more loved by God than you are right now if you don't change anything. The abundant love of God is pouring out all over you. In verse 3, he says, you are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. In verse 15, he says, I don't call you servants, I call you friends. You didn't choose me, I chose you. So he makes it very clear. This isn't about earning God's love. We are abundantly loved by God. This is about abiding and becoming aware of God's loving presence. As we start to wrap, I'd like to address one more verse here from the passage that often gets misunderstood. Chapter 15, verse 2, he cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it'll be even more fruitful. I think here's just this commentary real quick. The Greek phrase here can also be translated to, he takes up to himself every fruitless branch. He doesn't remove these branches, he takes them to himself. As the wise and loving farmer, he lifts them up off the ground to enhance their growth, like a trellis. In this context, Christ's endless love for his disciples on that last night of his life on earth seems to emphasize God's love even for those who fail and disappoint him. He cuts off in me. You know what another one of the words is later on? When it says prune, cleans or cleanses. He cleanses me. He cleanses us. What are we saying here? If you're not bearing fruit, get into the presence of God. God raises up the fruitless branches into his presence. I mean, imagine just a vine in the shadows and it's just brought into the sun. I don't know if you have any plants. We have my wife and I got plants. I'll just tell you that. But even over the course of 15 minutes, when you put a plant in the sun, it just starts to get in the presence of God. I say all of this to ultimately get to my end point right here. We're talking about commands, we're hearing about commands. Jesus says, obey in my commands and you'll remain in me. Just obey these commands, you'll remain in me. All throughout John 15, he says that, and then he makes one command crystal clear. This is my command. Love one another. You want to bear fruit? Love one another. Love one another. Love one another. I am the true sprouting vine, and the farmer who tends to the vine is my Father. He cares for the branches connected to me by lifting and propping up the fruitless branches and pruning every fruitful branch to yield a greater harvest. The words I have spoken over you have already cleansed you. So you must remain in life union with me, for I remain in life union with you. For as a branch severed from the vine will not bear fruit, so your life will be fruitless unless you live your life intimately joined to mine. I am the sprouting vine, and you are my branches. As you live in union with me as your source, fruitfulness will stream from within you. But when you live separated from me, you are powerless. If a person is separated from me, they are discarded. Such branches are gathered up and thrown into the fire to be burned. But if you live in life union with me, and if my words live powerfully within you, then you can ask whatever you desire and it will be done. When your lives bear abundant fruit, you demonstrate that you are my mature disciples who glorify my Father. I love each of you with the same love that the Father loves me. You must continually let my love nourish your hearts. If you keep my commands, you will live in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands, for I continuously live nourished and empowered by his love. My purpose for telling you these things is so that the joy that I experience will fill your hearts with overflowing gladness. This is my command. Love each other deeply, as much as I have loved you. For the greatest love of all is a love that sacrifices all. And this great love is demonstrated when a person sacrifices his life for his friends. You know that you are my intimate friends when you obey all that I command you. I have never called you servants because a master doesn't confide in his servants, and servants don't always understand what the master is doing. But I call you my most intimate and cherished friends. For I reveal to you everything that I have heard from my Father. You didn't choose me, but I have chosen and commissioned you to go into the world and to bear fruits. And your fruit will last, because whatever you ask of my Father for my sake, he will give it to you. So this is my parting command: love one another deeply.